YouTube, we're back with another week of hot takes. Let's just get right into it. First one from Overwatch Anonymous. Might be a hot take, but Sigma is harder to kill than Orisa. Not a hot take. First one off the bat, not hot at all. Pretty mild, I agree. I think Sigma, without resources, is more self-sufficient than Orisa. The thing with Orisa is she has Fortify, and that gives her a little bit of overhealth, and her ultimate gives a little bit of overhealth, and there's some mitigation on the spin. But other than that, Sigma's got a shield, which can absorb 700. The Suck gives overhealth, a lot of green health, and then that's on top of the shield health underneath, which can regenerate. So I do think Sigma is harder to kill, and is one of the reasons why he's very meta as a tank right now, because he is the least resistant to all counters. He doesn't have like a hard counter per se. Maybe if Brawl can get onto him really fast, but he's super like hard to kill. And he has great damage and a CC with the rock and a great ultimate. He's just very well rounded right now, and that's why he's meta. Next hot take. I wish it was still possible to switch between Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 hero select animations, because Zarya and Reinhardt are straight downgrades. I don't remember what the Overwatch 1 ones look like now. Let me go. I have a video on this. Okay, so they said it's straight downgrades. I think the Overwatch 1 Ryan was better because the hammer's in his hand. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the helmet off is a good touch, but it's just not the same without the hammer. Okay, the Zarya one they said was downgrades. Let me see. What did the Zarya one look like? In Overwatch 1? Bicep flex. Overwatch 2 is a fist. And then hands on the hips. That is actually truly a downgrade. I won't lie to you. I think those two specifically, although there are some that did get better, but these two specifically were a little bit of a downgrade on the animation. So I agree with you there. So I think having the option to choose, maybe, Eva's was an upgrade for sure. Next hot take here. DPS role passive should be that the lower your health is, the higher the damage you deal is. Oh, no. That is an extremely spicy, like, flamethrower, flame wheel, ember, fire blast take. Do not mess around with damage modifiers and breakpoints, ever. That is a recipe for disaster. Do not let Granger Gonzalez cook, ever. Do not do that. That's a spicy take. If we mess around with damage breakpoints, like with like a berserker style like this, like Olaf, less HP, more damage you deal, or full Darox if you play RuneScape, that's a recipe for disaster, because there's no downside. There's downsides, but like it's too strong, because there's some heroes that could probably stay at a low health and just one-shot everything. No thank you. Hot take. Next. Did I do this last time? I'm dead serious when I say that Brig Lucio is one of the best, if not the best bracket, at least most enjoyable support duo. Okay, let's unpack this. First of all, you said best, competitive best, and then you put bracket most enjoyable. Now, I would actually agree and say it's actually pretty enjoyable. Brig Lucio was a very all-in composition, a support lineup, and it was actually a little meta in Overwatch 2 before the public got to play it in the Overwatch League. Remember the Overwatch League 2 years ago? They were playing on the Overwatch 2 servers, but the public couldn't play it yet, and they played Junker Queen with Lucio Brig. And it actually did do pretty well, but that was actually mostly due to the commanding shout, which used to give 100 overhealth to everybody instead of, like, what, is it 50 right now to teammates? And it used to bug out sometimes and give double the commanding shout, where like if you broke line of sight and re-peek, they would get double the shield. So it was just, you already had a lot of extra overhealth from Junker Queen that you were able to play a lower healing support duo. But since that time has passed, that ship has sailed, nobody really plays Brig Lucio at this time. And I find it hard to justify it when other supports have come out and have been performing pretty well, like Kiriko or, Illari, even Weaver sometimes. And Baptiste is so good with Lucio. It's hard to argue Brig Lucio right now. Brig's identity is definitely more of an anti-dive, less so than a brawl. But yeah, it is a pretty hot take if you think it's the best from a competitive standpoint, but the enjoyable part is a bit more subjective to you, and it could be fun. I think it is pretty cool, pretty fun to mess around with. So that part's not as hot, but first part, very hot. Next take. Ooh, Widow's one-shot should be returned, allowing one-shot capability to 275 damage no matter the range. However, the shot needs to be fully charged to allow for more time between shots. Like a fully 100% charge. And what happens if you're at 99 then? It actually doesn't sound that bad to go all the way to 100. But I don't think Widow is weak in the right hand still, no matter what. I think at first you need to like give Widow a weakness, and that was like the infinite range. They cut that and they put her from 175 HP in Overwatch 1 near the end of it. They brought her back to 200. Now they brought her back to 175 to make her more vulnerable to dive. And I think that's a good trade-off. Widow's annoying to die to, but she actually doesn't feel that OP right now. They can definitely take over a game because it's like an instant dome and it can feel kind of shitty, but she is pretty vulnerable. Like you can 2-tap now with Kiriko. She is super diveable with like Doom or like Ball. She can actually get eaten up alive. She is still very map dependent. I don't actually feel Widow is that big of an issue right now. So, I mean, her one shot still exists. You know what I mean? It still does 300 at closer ranges. Like the fall off range is like in really outrageous distances, like 60 meters right now, which is for most maps not really applicable. So I don't know. I don't think they don't need to touch her right now. It's something to consider where like you need a full charge to do the full damage or change the headshot multiplier. And if you're not 100% charge, then it doesn't do like, what is it, 2.5x multiplier? Something like that. You can cook with this idea, but I don't think she needs to be looked at this moment. Widow players still play Widow because she is fun. She's a sniper, but she does have her trade-off with her weakness. So yeah. Okay, what's this next hot take? Instead of getting faster reloads after a kill, I would actually change it to get 5% extra ult charge. It wouldn't be that broken considering the DPS role has the least game-changing ultimates in the first place. A little bit of a mild to hot take. 5% extra ult charge is like nothing. I'd argue that's worse than the reload on some heroes. And then you have the second part where they have the least game-changing ults. That depends on the hero. I would say some of them are very strong. Not all of them, of course. They all have different uses, of course, but you can sort of iterate off that. DPS, if you can convert a final blow, maybe, as a DPS, as a damage hero, converting a final blow specifically maybe gives you 5% ult charge. If you kill 5, you get 25% if you do a team kill. Only if a final blow, though. Like if you just tag someone and they end up dying, you get nothing. That doesn't seem too bad. But then there are some heroes that are better at final blows, like the one-shotters, versus some who are just like, you know, deep, like slow tickling over time. I feel like you can sort of cook with this idea if you wanted to rework the DPS passive. There's something there. We might need to iterate off that. That would need some testing, but it's okay. I don't hate it. I'll be honest with you. This idea is new to me. I've never actually seen this suggested before. Oh, this take. The biggest problem in the Overwatch community is how hive-minded it is sometimes. I refuse to believe most of you actually are annoyed by Mercy players. Y'all just hear other people saying it and just start saying the same thing to fit in. Kinda true. Not some one part, the Mercy is just the one example, but this is not just an Overwatch thing. There's a very hive mind for a lot of games and influencers in general. This is not even like, this is just an influencer kind of dynamic where if somebody says something, somebody of influence in whatever industry or whatever they're in, it sort of does cascade down. If that makes any sense, right? If I say XYZ hero is bad, whatever, then my community or followers may probably believe me. Not you guys. You guys are just like, yeah, shut the fuck up, KarQ. But like, you know what I mean? And then we look at like real mainstream celebrities when they say, you know, this is something, then you have a bunch of people also agreeing with them. So yeah, I think that's my opinion of hive mind. That's just the power of influencers. I'm a content creator. I hate calling myself an influencer. I'm a content creator. Whether I influence you or not, that's not my intention. You believe whatever the hell you want. You could just, I always suggest people you can listen to my opinion, but make your own. Don't just blindly agree with me. We can, yes, agree to delete Hanzo though. And I actually do refuse to believe you're actually that annoyed of Mercy players. It's mostly just Twitter and probably just like insecure players who have to find a scapegoat. And the easiest one that people like to go for is the one that doesn't deal damage and they're just an enabler, aka Mercy, right? Unless they're full battle mercying. Yeah, some people definitely take it too far. There are definitely, actually, I can't really speak on this because I'm not a Mercy player, so I'm not the subject to some of this, you know, this hurled hatred and annoyance. I've heard stories how it is pretty bad. People definitely take it further than they normally do, but it's just like the toxic voices tend to be the loudest. The people who are indifferent and not annoyed, it's usually just like no voice chat or it's just nothing. But then the people who want to flame will just pick the one person. So I do feel for you. I do feel for you. Whoa. Koji added his own take to this. Baptiste's regenerative burst is the strongest part of his kit, not Immortality Field. Immortality Field hasn't been good since they nerfed its health to 150 in 2020. And when his regen burst got buffed with the double healing on half health, that's when it truly became the strongest ability on him. People still believe that Immortality Field is still the strongest, don't understand how much it's just not as good. Bait. This is bait. I actually will agree that regen burst is a strong part of his kit, but not the strongest. I still think the Immortality Field is a stronger ability. It has more complete neutralizing effects on bigger bursts. However, in a pokey, non-committal team fight and random 1v1s, the regen burst is a strong part. But I think the Immortality Field is more game-changing when the enemy expends higher value resources, if that makes sense. And also regen burst got nerfed where it's like 80 healing instead of 100 when they're cut in half. But although I will say the double healing thing was unnecessary in Overwatch 2. They never needed to give that to Bap. He was already good in the Overwatch 1 version of regen burst. And then when you combine the two, where if you put the lamp down, that's right, what Alan Diamond said, when you put the lamp, the Immortality Field down, and you take burst damage, but then you end up living because of the lamp, your regen burst now does the double healing because you're under the half health threshold. So he's back to full health. I actually think you could just cut out the half healing, the double healing, excuse me, because that's so strong when you combine it together. Okay. Oh, elimination mode 3v3 would be a better spectator sport for Overwatch than Overwatch League. It's easier to follow, more interesting hero pick strats, and more clutch play potential. More closely resembles Valorant and CSGO, which are wildly more popular. What? This is scorching hot. How in what world is 3v3 closer to Valorant and CSGO? 5v5. The 6v6 now that Overwatch is 5v5, that is closer to Valorant and CSGO than 3v3. 3v3 is a completely different esport at that point. What? I mean, that's just, and the second part of this take is that obviously it's easier to follow with 3v3 because there's literally less heroes being played, so there's less abilities on your screen, so it is easier to follow. Now you say more interesting pick strats. I disagree. Isn't it just simple math? Isn't it 3 factorial if you have hero picks with 3 heroes, but versus 5 factorial? What's the math? Somebody good at math. What are the possible hero combinations in the game without doubles for 3 people versus 5? It actually is like insanely different with the amount of hero combinations you can make. Obviously, I think the combinations differ because you have like you can only have a few per role, so it's a bit more complicated math, but like the general math of having 5 heroes changes the combination amounts by a significant amount, of course. I think the role limit is 1 of each, but yeah. And then there's more clutch play potential, also debatable. This is an extremely hot take. Don't agree with this one at all. Hot take. They shouldn't have scrapped the rework that Moira got during the Overwatch 2 beta. Necrotic Orb was a unique ability and a brand new mechanic that would give Moira more utility and playmaking potential that she doesn't have in her kit today. IMO. I'm not saying that Necrotic Orb was a balanced ability when it was released, and definitely needed some tweaks to it, either making it a single target skill shot like Honestly or reducing the negative effect down to something like 20 to 40%. However, they should have at least tried to ship it with the release of Overwatch 2 and see how the community thinks of it after a few months playing with or against it. I do think this is a hot take. I don't think the enfeebling orb or necrotic orb belonged. I think modifiers are a touchy subject because it changes the way how the perception of what you can live. Obviously, there will be a learning curve, and then people will realize, oh, if they have enfeebling or a necrotic orb, they can live it. And also, people who don't know, in the Overwatch 2 beta, they experimented with the Moira rework. I should have opened with this, where Moira would throw out an orb that would stick to a team and then give them 50% damage reduction. So you could just tank Diva bombs, because it would combine with other damage reduction stuff, like Bastion's Ironclad, or something like that, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. It was in a beta for like a few weeks, 2-3 weeks, and then they got rid of it because the feedback mostly was that it just wasn't fun. Yes, you could argue it was playmaking, a bit more playmaking for Moira, of course, but it was unfun for the other 38 people that had to play against it, 38 heroes against it. And, you know, as much as they want to help the Moira players, the 3 Moira players that exist, it's probably in their best interest to keep the majority happy, right? Let's be real here. There are favorites in this game in different levels of outrage. I remember when Mei was disabled or Bastion was disabled for like a week when they were bugged, and then they took their sweet time with it and nobody was really complaining. But let's say like a hero like Mercy was like had a game-breaking bug and they had to disable her. She would be gone for like a few hours at most before like the rage would come. Or like Diva, Mercy, or Rhine disabled for a bug, like they have to have priorities, and like the priority, I'm just gonna be real, it was probably not for the Moira player, it was for the player population. It just wasn't fun to play against the enfeebling or necrotic orb from Moira. Maybe you could iterate off it, but I actually think even despite that, there were a lot of Moira only players who actually enjoyed this version of Moira and actually disagreed with the suggested change. And they're like, you know what? I actually think she's fine the way she is. And not every hero needs to be like a crazy playmaker. And I think that's okay. The game is a very dynamic game with so many varieties of heroes. And I think you can have heroes that are simple to play, can generate decent value, and are fun for the players that like to play. It may not always be competitively viable, but that's okay. That's just my take for it. Next hot take. Nerf Doom's base seismic slam damage, but bring back the airtime damage scaling. It rewarded good mechanics, and I think it would fit much better into a 5v5 format. Was it really, like, listen, I'm not a Doom player, and Doom players will vehemently defend this, but is it really good mechanics to just cheese roof slides for max damage? Obviously, you need to practice it, and it is like, it felt more cheesy than good mechanics. If you played Overwatch 1, you would see Doomfist players that just stalled with their slam on a roof and would just kept bouncing to get the full damage slam. It was just so corny. I don't know. I don't, personally, as a non-Doom player, I don't want Doom to have more. Like, good Doom players will be able to farm the max damage every time then, and then just one-shot me even faster. It's gimmicky and cheesy. I don't like it. I think this is a hot take. I think the damage as it stands is fine. I actually thought it was... They used to have a slow on it, and once they nerfed that, I was like, interesting. But I think his slam is very useful for movement, and it's decent damage. It gives him, like, some decent overshields or overhealth. Yeah, I would not personally give more tools to Doom at this time. I actually think he's pretty good right now, all things considered. Doomins always say he's weak no matter what, because he does have some pretty strong counters or things that can make it unfun to play against. But I think Doom's pretty good. I feel like Doom is everywhere. Doom is like Doom is everywhere in Diamond. Everybody here who's around Plat Diamond is saying they see Doom like every day, multiple Dooms. Hot take. Ult charge should reset back to 0% when switching characters like in Overwatch 1. Having any amount of ult charge after swapping characters promotes it too much to counter swapping, and punishment if you win the first fight on some maps like Gibraltar. It makes the already struggling tank role feel even worse to play. You know, it's funny, when they first added the retaining ult charge, they wanted people to swap heroes. It's supposed to encourage hero swapping, and I know ML7 also tweeted out recently that like hero swapping is the essence of Overwatch, and I agree, believe it or not, because this game has never locked you into playing one hero. The people who hate hero swapping are those who can only play 1 or 2 heroes, and that's fine too. Not everybody has time to practice all the heroes, so I understand where people are coming from when they hate hero swapping, because it's not fun for you, because it's not your playstyle. But I guess for there's two sides to it. The people who play are one tricks or play two heroes at most, they can't stand it. But then someone like me who can play multiple supports, I don't mind it. So anyways, back to what I was saying. Blizzard initially kept the ult charge because they were encouraging it. This game doesn't lock you into one hero like League of Legends, Valorant, or Apex, where you pick your hero and then you're stuck the whole game. The whole point is you can go back and spawn and keep swapping if you need to. But I will say, back to 0% ult charge, like still give you the option to switch, but like go back to 0 is fine too. They did it to encourage it. May not be that as fun for tank players right now as a solo tank. So like I'm fine with putting it back at 0 and seeing how it goes and see if it improves again. Because I think it was added before Overwatch 2. Nobody in Overwatch 2 has played it back to the 0% ult charge swap thing. Now, the only thing I hope Blizzard doesn't do is completely take away hero swapping completely or switching for a side or something. That's a bit too much where you're locked into a comp the whole time. That's no good, but I'm okay with them trying it out. Go back to 0. That's my answer to this hot take. Go back to 0, see how it goes. Anyways, that's it for the hot takes this week. See you next week. Leave some more in the comments, and we'll maybe grab some and put it in next week's.